Let's make my checkered path quilt pattern using only a layer cake, which are 10-inch squares. Now for this pattern, you will need 42 10-inch squares, yielding a 51-inch by 56-inch throw size quilt. So let's get started. With each 10-inch square, you will subcut them into 5 10-inch rectangles and 2 2.5-inch by 10-inch rectangles. And that's it. You'll just repeat these same steps to every single layer cake 10-inch square. Once everything is cut, you are going to grab 2 different prints in the 2.5-inch by 10-inch rectangles and sew them together with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Once you've done so, you will then cut them into 4 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch rectangles per each strip set. Then you're going to rotate every other strip to create a checkerboard-like pattern, and then you'll sew it all back together to create a 4.5-inch by 8.5-inch rectangle. Then all you have to do is repeat this step to all of your 2.5-inch by 10-inch rectangles. Once you have all your checkerboard pieces finished, you'll want to measure the longest length of your checkerboard and cut the remaining 5-inch by 10-inch rectangles to the same length. Now once again, that checkerboard should measure 8.5 inches long, but it's always good to check your own measurements just to be sure. Last but not least, we will sew the 5-inch by 8.5-inch rectangle to the right side of your checkerboard with a 1/4-inch seam allowance to create a 9-inch by 8.5-inch rectangle. Now all you have to do is repeat this step until you have made a total of 42 quilt blocks. Now that all of your blocks are finished, it is time to lay your quilt out. First, for your odd columns, you will lay your block with the checkerboard on the right side, and for the even columns, you will lay your checkerboard on the left side in a 6 by 7 block layout. Then, as always, you'll sew your blocks together to form rows, and then lastly, sew your rows together to complete your quilt top. And here is what my quilt looks like all finished. I love how fast it is to make, even though it looks like you've spent a reasonable amount of time making it. But for the backing, I am using a floral print from within the same collection. And as for the thread choice, I have so many options and they're all from Glide Threads. And in the order, I have Latte, Peach, Seafoam Green, Pistachio, and Mercury. And although I chose Apricot Blush, I actually ended up quilting with Peach. And here is what my checkered path quilt looks like all quilted out. I do hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial. If you could please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing quilt project.